Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman. Today, got a real treat for you. Her name is Kerry Siggins, and she is the CEO at StoneAge. Kerry, say what's up to everybody.
What's up, everyone? So glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me on the show today.
Sure. So first off, let's talk about StoneAge, what you guys do, what it's about, and then we're gonna dig into the origin story of Kerry. So tell us about StoneAge first.
Oh, StoneAge is far more interesting than me. We manufacture high pressure water jetting tools and equipment, high tech squirt on steroids. I mean, everybody I think who listens to this podcast is probably familiar with a StoneAge tool or something similar. We started out making tools that just go on the end of the hose to clean pipes, heat exchangers, tanks, surface prep, things like that. But we've really transitioned the company into developing, semi-automated and now fully automated autonomous robot cleaning equipment. So we are focused in the industrial cleaning space, although we are looking at expanding outside of industrial cleaning. We have a wholly owned subsidiary called Breadware, which is an IoT product development company. IoT is Internet of Things, which is basically a company that helps people build smart devices, and we acquired them in 2020, and so we're really building out this whole technology platform, and we'll continue to expand on that as we grow. So we'll grow in the core business of hydroblasting and sewer cleaning, but we'll also grow outside of that as well as we're looking at new product development and acquisitions.
Yeah, I like it. Okay. And you're probably right. A lot of our listeners probably have came across, used, a piece of StoneAge equipment, which is pretty cool. And I never knew you were behind the helm of StoneAge. So let's dig into Kerry's backstory. What were you doing at 15 that led you to here?
Oh God. Getting in trouble. Oh, I was a wild child, if anybody can believe that. I think most people probably can. I was a wild child, and I got in a little bit of trouble. And actually, my mom said to me after I moved out for a couple of days and got caught writing my own excuse notes for skipping school, which luckily she only picked out 5 or 6 of them instead of the probably 100 that were there. So I didn't get expelled from school. But she said to me, "You have so much potential and you are blowing it. And when you are 18, you are out of this house. I don't care if you work at Walmart for the rest of your life, but you cannot live here after you're 18. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe that she didn't think I was going to go to college. And I was like, what? You think I'm going to work at Walmart? You don't think I'm going to go to college? And she's like, what would make me think that you're going to college? Look at all of these absent notes that you forged. You don't go to school now. What's going to make you go to college?" And so that was a real wake-up call for me that my behaviors and decisions weren't aligning with the vision that I had for myself. And so I buckled down and I said, I'm going to go to Colorado School of Mines. I'm going to get a softball scholarship. I'm going to get an engineering degree. And that's what I made happen. I did it. I called the softball coach and she came and watched me, and I convinced her to give me a scholarship, and I got into mines, luckily, and by the skin of my teeth, since I did skip a lot of school back then. And that's actually, part of the story of what led me here. But that's what I was doing at 15 that got me to where I am today.
Cool. So from being absentee to playing softball collegiately, and then, and then graduating with an engineering degree. And then how did that lead into how you got into StoneAge and how you became the captain behind the wheel?
Another interesting story of me getting myself into trouble. So okay. I went to school of mines, not really with a passion for engineering, mostly because, engineers made a lot of money when they graduated from college. And my dad told me I wasn't smart enough to graduate from engineering school, so I was going to prove him wrong. But funny thing is that I didn't really want to be an engineer, and I figured that out my sophomore year. But there was no way I was leaving. And so getting through mines became a means to an end for me. I worked multiple jobs. I played softball. I graduated from mines in 4 years, which is almost unheard of. We have a lot of extra credits there. So it was just put your head down and work. And when I graduated, I was lost. I had spent so many years trying to prove that I was successful, that I was smart enough to do these things, that I never actually paused to say, who am I? What do I want with my life? And that led to some pretty poor choices because I was in a dark place. And so I developed substance abuse issues, and which consumed about 5 years of my life. And I moved back home to Durango. I grew up in the western slope of Colorado, not in Durango, but a town nearby, to heal, recover, to clean myself up, to get my act together. Like my mom said, yep, you can come back and live with me. Here are the rules that you have to follow at 28, which was a little humiliating, but it was what I needed. And I applied for a job at StoneAge, and the founders and the management team decided to take this huge risk and hire me. They didn't know my backstory. They could just see, I think, the potential, the drive, the smarts there, not maybe all the bad habits that I had. And they took a chance and they hired me. They said, we're going to give her a 50-50 shot of working. And if it doesn't work, then we can go get a more traditional candidate to take the general manager role. And here I am almost 17 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just the beauty of taking a chance at people, not writing somebody off, not looking at somebody's past and just saying, that won't work. So I love those types of redemptive stories. So imagine 22-year-old or let's say 15-year-old Kerry's listening to this. And she's like, more seasoned Kerry, what would be the most important skill set to develop, to grab, to grab hold of, to be a successful CEO at a place like StoneAge? What would that skill set be?
Two things that I think they go hand in hand, and that is self-awareness and personal responsibility. I did not have much self-awareness at 15 years old. Not that a lot of 15-year-olds do, maybe more so today than I certainly did back in the 90s. But I didn't know who I was. And no one had ever asked me those questions. Like, I talk to my 10-year-old son about it all the time now, and making him explore, who he is and what interests him and why. But no one was asking me those types of questions back then. It just wasn't, as prevalent as it is today. And so I lacked a lot of self-awareness through, much of my 20s. And in fact, I really started developing it when I was looking at the state of my life and saying, I don't want to live this way anymore. Why do I make these decisions? And it was a question I couldn't answer. And so I started digging in, and it changed my life, developing this self-awareness. And I think that's where personal responsibility goes hand in hand, that you can develop self-awareness, but if you are going to be a victim of your circumstance, blame other people, blame situations, blame yourself, then you don't have the power to really change your life. And so this idea that I'm responsible for everything that happens to me, it happens because of me, even if you're a victim of circumstance, which, no, I don't ever want to victim blame. That's bad things happen to people, and it is not their fault, but you still are responsible for how you are going to respond to it, how you're going to choose to let it impact your life. So there is still an empowering moment, even when you truly are a victim of circumstance. And so I would go back to my 15-year-old self, and I would talk about that. I would talk about responsibility, accountability, about self-awareness.
Gotcha. Speaking of self-awareness, personal responsibility, I always like to get stories out of people. And I need a story from Kerry of when something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then also what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
Oh my God, every day something goes wrong. And that's what leadership is. That's what running a company is that there's nothing that's ever perfect. And, sometimes things are coming along a lot better, and sometimes things aren't. And so it's always going to ebb and flow. And what leadership is about is, how do you show up in all of those times? And even when you're tired and exhausted, take COVID, for example. We had to lay off 5% of our workforce, which was horrible. We'd never laid off people in our history, but we had no idea what the impact was going to be and how long it was going to last. And I had to make sure that the company was going to be able to make it if it was prolonged for multiple years. And so sales were down, and we were luckily a what do they call it? Not a high impact business, but whatever it's called,
necessary business, something
yeah,
like that.
necessary
And
business.
yeah,
Exactly, 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 exactly. Yeah, exactly. Necessary business. And so,
yeah,
we could come into work, but we had all these
yeah.
regulations and rules and things in place. It was really hard. And morale, I mean, it's just so scary for people. And what I learned through that was that it was okay to say, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I cannot predict this, but what I can tell you is that I will be 100% transparent. Every time that I learn something, every time something goes wrong, decisions that we make, we will share it with you to the very best of our ability as real time as possible. And so it was really scary for our employees, and especially when we laid people off. Even though we told everyone this is it, we're not going to do more, there's always that fear that, well, did she really mean it? Is there going to be another shoe that drops later? And it was really, really tough. And I remember sitting on my back porch out here. I live kind of out in the country in Durango, and the skies were this beautiful blue. There's no planes flying in the skies. I mean, everything was just this crystal clear crispness. It was a hot summer morning, and I'm going, can I do this? Do I have what it takes to lead through this? This is really hard. It's so scary. I do not know how do I put any kind of control on this completely uncontrollable situation? And it was really tough. I think a lot of leaders went through that same questioning of, do I have what it takes? But I did learn through it that I'm a good wartime CEO. Leading through COVID, leading through the 2008, 2009 downturn. I like when crisis calls, I lean into it. And that's really what I learned about it with COVID. But man, it was tough having to see sales drop like that and have to lay people off and then keep the rest of the troops motivated and feeling good about what they were doing. It was one of the biggest challenges that I've ever had to go through. It was so
Gosh, I'm
emotional.
sure. I'm sure. And the word that's jumped out and hit me in the face was transparency.
Mhm.
Because I mean, we've all worked for companies where you just don't know what the management is thinking.
Yep.
You're a salesman, you're out in your car, you're driving around. You don't know what the GMs and the VPs and CEOs are thinking or about to do next. And I appreciate it coming from your seat as a
Mhm.
CEO that you are transparent and that I'm sure there's times where you have to kind of hold back because again, being a good wartime CEO, not every soldier needs to know the the actual the game plan. But I appreciate you being more, saying you were
Yeah.
transparent about it. I think a lot more people can glean from that. Where did that come from? Was that something that you dealt with as a softball player, or you just seen other CEOs act that way?
Yeah, I think it comes from two things. I mean, I think transparency is everything, and it's not easy. And the bigger you get, it's harder and harder to get that communication out. But it's so important because if, in the absence of communication, people make up their own stories, and those stories are usually negative. And so, being transparent is really important. And I think it came from two things. One is that I'm just naturally open, and I don't have a problem sharing things with people. I generally trust people, maybe sometimes too much, but I would way rather get burned by those one or two people than not have the hundreds of deep, meaningful relationships that you get from those one or two who burn you. And so I think that when you're not afraid to be vulnerable or open, that it just tends to make it easier as a leader. And then I learned it from my very best boss, a guy named Mike Mora. He was my manager at my first job. It was an internship that I had in college that I took as a full-time job after I graduated. And he was always just so real. He just kept it real with me. And we always had open communication, and he'd always make time to sit down and talk to me about what was going on and, where the problems were, where they weren't, what was going on with the company. And as I had other managers who didn't do that same thing, I always would look back and really appreciate Mike for that. And so when I became a leader, I wanted to emulate Mike and also have those same sort of open conversations with my employees as well. So I think it was the combination of watching somebody who I admired and also not being afraid to be open myself.
Sure. Sure, I like that. And then also, women are built different than men. What's it like being a CEO in kind of a male dominated, male centric industry? I mean, is it, when I ask this question, it's not necessarily like, oh, women are different, but it's just we're
Yeah,
wired a little bit differently. And
yeah,
what's it like
definitely.
dealing with I guess men in this industry?
Well, I've dealt with men my whole life.
U.S. Yeah.
Went to Colorado School of Mines. Like, I'm a tomboy. So, I, so it was. I think I've always even just been naturally drawn to, being in more male dominated spaces. Maybe not that drawn, but comfortable, I would say. And so it did not intimidate me at all. Every job I've had, when you go to engineering school and you have jobs that align with that, like it's typically male dominated. So I don't know how to be, in any other type of industry. But I would say this, that when I came on at StoneAge, I feel like I had a higher bar to to prove myself that I could do the job. I even had a customer tell me that he thought it was a huge mistake that the founders hired me to run the company, that that there was no way I was going to be technical enough to do it, which what I heard was like, you're a woman and so you can't do this. Um but I took it a little personally, but I use it as fuel, but not in so much as fuel to prove him wrong, but just as fuel to be able to say women, to be motivated, to be a role model to other women in the industry, other women who worked for me, that you don't have to buy into that narrative. You don't have to take that narrative personally either. You can just do the work, and yes, you might have to work a little bit harder to prove yourself, but there's really good things that can come out of it if you have the right mindset. You can be upset by it, you can feel a victim of it, or you can say, I'm going to be a better, stronger leader because of it. And that's the path that I took. So I think once I got through those first couple of years and then really started to transform StoneAge, by then I had the respect of people in my industry. And ever since then, I have not really felt it. Now, I probably get called names by, maybe competitors that they wouldn't call a male competitor. Like, I know that for a fact. But again, it's just, you can choose to take things personally, or you can just choose to say, hey, maybe I'm doing something right. The fact is I run a great company that our employees love working for. We're doing the right things. And if I upset a couple of people in the industry, competitors in the industry, then maybe I'm doing something right about building a organization that's disruptive and an organization that lasts. So
Yeah.
I chose not to take it personally and chose to just say, I think it's maybe not a bad thing.
Sure, sure. And to disclose, like I have a daughter now. So this question, this topic, this whole, I mean, come on. When I'm 25 years old, men, women, tomato, tomato, like whatever. But now I have a daughter, so it's like I want her to be
Yeah.
successful. I want her to be able to navigate these male-dominated industries, boardrooms, whatever. As a woman and her true self. I don't want her to have to like think she has to shake a guy's hand super duper hard to feel more
Right.
like a guy, or bark and like all that stuff. I just want her to be herself as a woman, and in all her greatness, and navigate these industries. So I thank you for that answer. Now,
Yeah.
again, the questions like these hit home for me now. These topics, before I could care less. Oh, a woman, who cares? Like whatever. But now
But
it's
it
like, oh,
matters. It does
it's a
matter.
thing.
And especially as we raise young women to, young women and young men. Like, I have a son, I have a 10-year-old son, and, I'm raising him to be able to understand powerful women and respect powerful women. He sees it as a role model, right? He's not going to know anything differently than a strong woman who can lead something really, really well. And I think it's the same thing with your daughter. I think the best advice that we can give anyone, our children, whether it's our sons or our daughters, is one, always be yourself. I spent years torturing myself, suffering, because I was trying to be what I thought other people wanted me to be. It was a huge waste of time and energy, and caused a lot of trauma. And don't take things so personally. If we just did not take things so personally and just said, you know what, I am going to choose to not let that comment make me mad, Oh, that comment is about that person, not about me. I'm not going to change who I am or what I'm doing or let it affect my self-confidence. Then we can fix so many of these interpersonal, these negative conversations that we have with us, the negative self-talk and the self-doubt that we have, and the way we try to, morph ourselves into other things. So, and I think that boys and girls always need to hear that message, because you shine your biggest light on the world when you show up as your true self, and when you aren't spending time being so worried about what some comment meant and taking it personally.
Yeah, yeah, and I understand what you mean by take it personal, and I agree with that. But sometimes I like to take things personal. Like if there's a time where I don't get the proposal, or I don't get the RFQ, and I don't get awarded the bid because XYZ, I take that personal. Like you said, personal responsibility. Like, what could I have done differently to get that figured out? What could I? And my daughter's 2, so she doesn't really understand it. But I think I will teach her, like, okay, you can't dwell on other people's faults. Like if somebody calls you a nasty name, that's their problem. That's not your problem. But why do they call you that name? Were you not being nice to these people? Did something happen on your end? So try to remove all doubt that you're the culprit, and then just make that their problem instead of yours. So I do agree with that, but I do think it's okay to take stuff personally if you're going to apply some personal responsibility to it.
And that's the key. That's really the key is, do you take it personally and negative self-talk and let it ruin your self-esteem? Do you take that personally and create blame? Or do you take personal responsibility to say, okay, I didn't do my best. I could do better. Maybe the comment that stung and that was hurtful, maybe there's some truth to it, and I should explore it to see if I can use that as fuel to improve myself. It's all what you do with it. So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. And you can use criticism, even unconstructive criticism, to fuel you, as long as you say, I'm going to grow from this, rather than let it diminish me or let it turn me into a victim.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. We're thinking on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
So how does Kerry keep showing up smarter and smarter year after year, day after day, month after month? What's your personal and professional development regimen like? She laughs.
Relentless is probably the best way I could put it.
Okay.
My husband is like, oh my God, even in your downtime, you are like always on. I don't know how to be any other way but on. I don't feel like I'm on all the time. My downtime is definitely reading. And it's also huge personal development. I listen to audiobooks when I go on a mountain bike ride. It's like the best way to come up with new ideas and to be able to consume more knowledge. And so I am an avid reader. I read probably between 40 and 60, listen to 40 to 60 books per year. And listen to podcasts. And so I love just gaining knowledge from other people. And I also, so that's a big one. I surround myself with people who are smarter than me, who are talented in different ways, whether that's on my team, whether that's through like peer networking groups. So I'm part of an organization called YPO, Young Presidents Organization, which is game changing. It's a global organization of CEOs and presidents under the age of 50. And I learned so much from surrounding myself with people who have done things that I want to do, or who think about things differently than I do and who spark it. So I'm really big on building those relationships and networking and going all in for that. But you also have to have downtime. So I get a massage every week. That's like my way to relax. I meditate. I'm a big meditator. I meditate for 20 minutes every morning to like knock the edge off myself. I exercise to make sure that, and eat well to make sure that I can be at my optimal self to do all the things that I've got going on in my life, and do it with energy and happiness, rather than, feeling resentful or feeling low energy or kind of like blah. So, those are some of the things that I do. But my number one thing is reading. Like, I just don't understand people who don't read. It's like, oh my God, you are missing out on this like amazing aspect of being human, the ability to read and write. Yeah.
And one thing I always say about reading is that when Kerry's done, when she's 99 years old, she finally writes her book, right? I could grab all of Kerry's insight and put it into my brain for $25 in like 5 hours. Like, who
Mhm.
wouldn't want to do that? Like, you can
Well,
grab
you have
all
an
the
opportunity to do that before you're 99, before you're 99. My first book is coming out. It was my pandemic project. It was the first opportunity that I had a little bit of time because I wasn't in the office and I was running
right.
things. It's like I have this ability to do something creative. And so I wrote my first book, which is coming out in October, which is
Yes.
basically, my whole philosophy on the own it mindset, on this idea of personal responsibility and how that ties to StoneAge because we're an employee owned company. But yeah, I think, and that's what I love about it. In fact, in my acknowledgements, I say, there are so many authors out there who have influenced and impacted my life and my thinking. And I can't name every single one of them in this book, but I am so privileged and honored to be one of you too. And if my book makes an impact in one person's life, like so many books have made an impact in mine, then the insane amount of work that it took to write that thing and get it published, and now we're starting on the marketing, which is a whole nother beast, was worth it.
Yeah, the marketing behind it. It's one thing to write a book. It's another thing to like get it out there in front of people.
So much work.
That's the fun part. All right, let's say I asked your husband's golf buddy. I'm like, dude, what does Kerry do for society? Like, what does he even do? What would he get totally wrong in answering that question?
Okay, so that would be Aaron Sinberg.
Okay. You don't have to name the guy.
I gotta like put the persona in it. What would you get wrong about me? I would say that I don't know that unless you like are experiencing, the way that I truly lead within the company, that he would understand how generous I am. I am a very, very generous person with my time, with coaching, with help, with listening. I will help anyone. I got second chances. I give anybody a second chance. And so I don't know that unless I think you can see like the whole persona and my drive and ambition and, where we've taken StoneAge and all the things that I do, out there in the world. I don't know that unless you were close to me, that people would see that I am just this really big, caring, generous human being who just wants to help people live their dreams and unleash their potential.
Sure. I love it. So let's say we're out in the world and everybody's listening to this and we come across a conversation. What should we listen for? Who would be best for, let's say, Kerry, and then also best for StoneAge? Like, what problem is StoneAge solving besides nozzles and high pressure, high pressure mechanics? Like, how can we help Kerry and StoneAge out?
So you're saying what people would be able to do to help us, or the bigger impact that we're making in the world besides making really awesome
more so the first question. Yeah, like how can we help you? How can we drive you leads or traffic or stuff like that?
Gotcha. I see. Well, doing things like this, right? Giving us a platform to share our stories. I think that humans, we connect through stories and we understand ourselves better through stories. We are so much more inclusive when we understand people's stories. And so, I love the opportunity to come on and talk about the amazing things that we are doing as a company and how we're changing the world. So, thank you for inviting me on and asking me all of these really great questions. So that platform to just share our story with the world. And then, yeah, I mean, we are always just looking for anybody who's interested in using high pressure water to clean, to cut. There's all kinds of applications that water can be used in. And so, yeah, if there's a unique thing that's out there, then, we would love to take the challenge of figuring out how to solve that problem. Water is an amazing, amazing substance, and it can do so much. And we love engineering the power of water.
Love it. Love it. All right. So I always like to leave a space on the show for you to thank mentors that you had along your journey, and then also offer up a word of inspiration and motivation to, let's say, your industry CEO counterparts. Like, they're in the trenches, they're fighting the battles, probably you're fighting also. What would you say to keep them motivated, keep them inspired?
We do such important work that the world doesn't see. We keep supply chains running. We keep cities and towns running. And no one understands where the things that they use every day, the things that make their lives better, where they come from. No one thinks about flushing their toilet until they can't flush their toilet. And so while our work is hard and it's not seen and maybe not appreciated the way that it should be, we are doing a very important part of keeping the world running. Our products, our services, if we didn't have them, every single industrial facility, food processing facility, shipyard would come to a screeching halt. Every sewer system in the United States, in Europe, in any country in the world would come to a screeching halt. So even though it might be thankless and tough and a really, really hard industry, we are doing incredibly important work to keep the world turning.
I love it. I personally needed that. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That was good. Someone's a motivational speaker. All right. Let's say I am coming to Durango, right? Durango. And I said, Kerry, where can I go to get the best burger in town? Where are you going to send me?
Oh, hands down, Sunnyside Meat Market. So Sunnyside is this little like a gourmet deli. It's owned by Holly Zink, who is the daughter of one of StoneAge's founders, Jerry Zink. And Jerry, because he's a fourth generation Durangoan, big ranching and farming family, he built the only slaughterhouse, USDA approved organic slaughterhouse in this part of the country. And so all of the meat is processed locally, grown locally, and then actually processed. So it's not, going away to some big, huge food, slaughterhouse and food manufacturing processing plant and then coming in to feed you your burger. It's literally coming from cows that are here, from a slaughterhouse where it's here, to a meat market that it brings in fresh meat every day. And their burgers are so good. And so not only are they delicious, but you're supporting this whole food movement, this, how do we eat more locally? How do we source food so it's has less of an impact on the environment? And so you're also doing good by the community and by the planet when you eat at Sunnyside.
Love it. That's for sure farm to table right there.
It's exactly right.
Love it. All right, Kerry, one more time. Can you tell us when the book is coming out? Then also let us know where we can find more about you and then where we can find more about StoneAge.
Yes. So the book is out October 17th of this year, 2023. And you can find anything out about me on my website, kerrysiggins.com. You can pre-order the book there, both ebooks and the hardcover. The audiobooks will be ready after launch. And so, go to kerrysiggins.com for everything. And if you're interested in finding out more about StoneAge, we just built some beautiful new websites. And so you can go to StoneAge Tools or warthognozzles.com and you can go check us out there, whether you're on the high pressure side or on the sewer nozzle side. And either way, through the StoneAge site or our Warthog site, you can get to either company. So that's where I would go to find out more about StoneAge. We talk a lot about our ESOP, which is our employee stock ownership program, and how we're employee owned. So not only do you find out lots of cool information about our products, but we are doing some really, really interesting things with building cultures and wealth creation through employee ownership. And so it's kind of fun to read up on and understand that there's this different way of running a business if you're open to it.
Yeah. Love it. Well, Kerry, thank you for hopping on the Public Works podcast. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Kerry, any final words before we get out of here?
Thank you all for having me, and thank you all for helping keep the world running and for being safe. We all need to be able to go home to our families safely every night, and we all play an important part of that by being diligent, by being smart, and by using products that keep us safe.
Love it. All right, Kerry, thank you for hopping on the podcast. And all the listeners, thank you for tuning in.